Okay, meet Bonnie. Now, Bonnie wants to get a more youthful look, but currently there are 4 hair mistakes that are standing in her way. Right now, if you're a veteran to this channel, why don't you go ahead and comment below and tell me if you can find the 4 hair mistakes that I'm currently seeing, or if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Justin Hickox. I've been doing hair since 1995, and this series is very simple. I help solve people's hair struggles so that they can get a more youthful look, and it's all based on emails that they send me. Bonnie actually sent 2 emails, and the first one reads, "Hi Justin, I love your help on YouTube. Thank you. I always wear these glasses. I've had bangs most of my life. I've been growing out my hair for some time now. I'm 65 and don't color my hair and would prefer not to start due to cost. Can you help my straight, flat, heavy hair? I know you can." And now in her second email, she references this concern as well. "I wanted to send additional pictures because no matter how I blow dry my growing out bangs or use a curling iron or any other device on them, they still go straight and poke forward. I have to spray them with freezing hairspray twice a day." Now, mistake number 1 is that the length is just a little bit too long. And one of the things that she mentioned in her email was that it was just being a little bit too heavy and it felt like she couldn't get the volume. And the real way that we're going to create volume with her hair texture in this shape is to add, well, layering. And I know some people are kind of concerned about layers, but layers are the way that this volume is going to happen. But the thing about layering is that layering is dictated by length. And that means that the longer her hair is, the longer these layers are going to be to balance with the overall length so they don't end up being too short for the length. And that means that at this particular length, with her hair texture, those layers are going to be long enough that they're still going to be kind of heavy, and therefore she's not going to be able to get the volume that she's looking for. But on second to this, the length right now, if you look at the front, is actually starting to pull her face down, and it's actually starting to elongate her face. And her particular face shape is actually on the longer side. And I know that she's been growing her bangs out, and we'll actually talk about that in just a second. But right now, with those bangs being grown out, you're exposing more of the face, and that has a tendency to actually elongate the face as well. So when you compound elongating the face with the grown out bangs, as well as the extra length, that's a lot of elongation on her face when we really should be kind of working against the elongation and actually adding a little bit more width to her face. So if we were to bring that length up a little bit, this is what it would look like. Now, we're not bringing the length up a ton, and we don't really need to. Just a little bit can go a long ways. But not only is this going to open our hands up a lot more, give us a lot more freedom with what we do internally with layering to create more volume, as you can see, this is also starting to give a little bit more fullness to her face. And I think that is the real key to kind of why I would say bring that length up. But with that said, let's dive into mistake number 2. Okay, now mistake number 2 is she's not wearing bangs. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculous considering that in her email she specifically said, "I'm growing my bangs out," or she's been growing her bangs out. And so why would I call that a problem and tell her to wear bangs? That's just dumb. Makes sense. But here's where I'm coming from. I don't think that she needs to go into straight across full bangs. But I do think some swept off bangs would go a long way into pulling some of the length out of her face. Now, from concern number 1, we're talking about the length, that was adding an elongation to her face. So that was actually drawing her face out as well. Now, without wearing any bangs, that's doing the same thing. So now we've got a situation where she's already got a long face, but on top of that, you're accentuating that length by having an extra amount of length in the front, and then on top of that, not wearing any bangs at all. So all of those things are, I don't want to say working against her, but they're all adding more length to her face shape. And what we really want to do is kind of offset that length a little bit and add a little bit more fullness to it. So that's where I say that some swept off bangs would work really well. Now, before I show you what that would look like on her, I want to first kind of talk to you about mistake number 3. And mistake number 3 is her part. It's just a little bit too far off to the side. Now, if you look right here, you'll see that it looks like it's a pretty pronounced part. It's almost like this growth pattern is going to dictate it and make it pretty hard to part it anywhere else. But if we actually moved that part over just a little bit and went against that growth pattern, it would actually give her a little bit more control. One way to get control out of the bangs is actually like getting a little bit of volume out of the bangs. If we start with volume, it's more often than not that we can play that volume down. It's harder to create it. So using that little bit of bend that she has at that very part area right now and moving that part over, that little bit of bend is going to give her a little bit more volume and therefore potentially give her a little bit more control. So if she were to actually do more of a swept off bang and pull that part a little bit further over, well, this is what that could all look like. Now, as you can see here, we're still wearing the bangs down against her face. We're not giving them a ton of volume. But that parting it off to the side a bit and wearing those bangs swept over is actually helping to soften the length in her face and really start to draw more focus, if you will, or emphasis on cheekbones and face structure. And that's very important. Now, this actually all takes us into what I would kind of maybe say mistake number 4, but not really mistake number 4 because she already talked about it, but more insights into how she can deal with those bangs that are always drying straight. So one big thing that actually I see in the salon a lot is this exact struggle that she's going through right now, which is those bangs or straighter textures of hair, finding it really difficult to get any sort of bend in them. And so here's a method that you can use that will help you get the most control out of your bangs. Now, first of all, you're going to need some sort of likely product to help get a little bit of control. Bangs that are fighting you in any way usually need some sort of foundational product to get them to actually do what you want them to do. So start with whatever foundational product functions the best for you. But then we want to start working them from the point that they are wet, and we want to start drying them with what we call non-directional, which means that you're not drying them any one which way. You're going back and forth. That means that you're drying them down into your face. You're parting them all the way off to the right side, then going all the way off to the left side, then going all the way back, then back down to your face, then all the way off to the left side and back to the right side, and back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth until they're dry. What this is going to do is help control some of those cowlicks right in the very front along that hairline. And this is going to give you more ability to deal with getting your bangs to basically stay, if you will, where you put them. Now, the next thing you don't want to do is get a little bit of bend in them. You don't want curl, right? So you don't want big curl, but you do want bend. Bend is going to help you get control. So the way you get control out of bangs is you get control out of a little bit of root lift, so some little bit of volume, not big, huge root lift, just a little bit, and bend. Those two things are going to give you the ability to get them to basically do what you want. Now, the way you get bend is by either using a round brush, a flat iron can give you bend, or a curling iron. If you're currently using a curling iron and or a flat iron and not getting the results that you want, I'm going to go ahead and link a video in the description below where you can actually see how I walk or how I approach the process of actually flat ironing hair. And I refer to something a lot called a C shape, where you're actually creating a bit of a C shape with the iron. And that's what you're going to do with your bangs. Go ahead and after you're done watching this video, check that video out. Again, it's in the description. So with all of that said, why don't we talk about some curveballs? Sound like a plan? All right, I've got a couple, and I'm not going to lie, they don't suck. Okay, so I lied to you a little bit. Before we dive into the curveballs, I first want to show you a before and after. Now that you've seen kind of what these mistakes look like step by step, let's see what it looks like from where we started with Bonnie's hair and to where we are currently, and then I'll show you my other ideas for her. So we started here, and here is the after. Now, one of the things I actually like about this is that it's not a massive change, because that's kind of not the point here. We're not trying to dramatically change everything about Bonnie's hair. What we are trying to do is get this particular style that she's currently in to function its best for her. And I think that these modifications have done just that. It's kept her in a length range that's very comfortable, that's very basically where she's already at. However, it's utilizing the grown out bangs to function better for her face shape. It's bringing the length to a length that actually functions better for her face shape. So it's taking what she's got and turning that into something that is more advantageous for her, giving her a more youthful look, and overall, I think works very well for her. But with that said, I did promise you curveballs, so let's talk about them. Okay. So I've got two actual curveballs here, and one of them actually contains a sneaky little secret that will help you get more volume potentially in your hair and control those bangs a little bit better. So that'll be number 2. Stick around. But my first curveball is, well, nothing absolutely crazy, because I didn't want to go totally out of the norm for Bonnie. I didn't want to kind of freak her out, but I still wanted to give her a shape that would be really beneficial for a multitude of different reasons. And so this is what I came up with. Now, what I love about this particular shape is that while it is a bob shape, it actually does a lot of stuff for us for specifically Bonnie's exact situation. She has a hard time getting volume in her hair and kind of just struggles with getting it have any sort of kind of bend to it. That's where the volume concern is kind of stemming from. These particular shapes don't really need a whole ton of bend and volume. They really kind of just work by themselves. Now, this is all assuming that the volume is taken out of the right areas via the right kind of layering and beveling in the nape, etc., etc. But this particular shape, I think, would function really well for her. Even if she didn't get a lot of volume, it would still have volume in the correct areas. And that means that if her hair were straighter, it would still have a good amount of movement and texture, but at this particular length, it still takes out some of the elongation that's going on with Bonnie's face currently to give her a little bit more fullness. It's a little bit more flattering, and with these bangs swept off to the side, it gives her a little bit more accentuation of cheek structure, and overall, it's a very timeless and youthful look. So for me, I'm actually quite a big fan of this. While it's simple, it does everything it needs to do, and sometimes things don't need to be hard. And that is what takes us into curveball number 2. And this one contains a little bit of a secret, and that is, well, here's the curveball. Okay, now if you look at this, you're going to say, well, that looks very similar to kind of where she was at. But this does have a little bit more bend, and you'll kind of have to ignore the color. I know that she said that she didn't really want to get deep into coloring, and I don't blame her, and she doesn't need to. So this color was just kind of a byproduct of the overall shape that I found. I wasn't able to get it to tone down. So imagine that the color is just her natural color. The shape is what I'm referring to. There's a lot of bend, but kind of bend in the right areas in this. And the way that that bend could be created is through a perm. Yeah, I said it. Perm. I know some of us are looking at it going, why would you get a perm? So let me explain myself. This is what we would call a body perm. And a body perm is not really your standard trying to get a bunch of curl perm. This is just a perm that is meant to be blow dried straight, but give stick bone straight hair a little bit more volume and bend. And that bend or body is what creates movement and texture and really kind of addresses a lot of the concern that Bonnie's having. And so that is why I think this would be a very good idea for her. It is a bit of maintenance, but it's not a ridiculous amount of maintenance because it takes a while for them to grow out. So it's not something she's going to have to do once a month. She'll eventually get to a place where her hair just isn't quite getting the same bend that it used to, and that's when she'll know that it's time to get a retouch on the perm. But until then, it would give her a lot of ease in the department of trying to get some bend and volume and shape into her hair. And so that would allow this particular length to actually function much better for her. And in fact, she could even go a little bit longer than this and still have it work really well. Because even though we're going longer and it would elongate her face more, the added bend in it is going to give more volume through the sides, which is going to add a little bit more width. So if you couple that with the swept off bangs, or bangs even swept back like this one is, you would be really kind of still in a really good place where you're not adding too much length. So that's my thought, but you know what I want to know is what's your thought? Do you think Bonnie should do a perm? Is that like a bad word now? I don't know. Or do you think she should just do the bob and make it simple? Or do you think she should just, correct the simple mistakes that we're seeing? You let me know what you think, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week while I enjoy this. You might not be able to see it, but there's a little river right back here, so I'm going to enjoy that view. That's what I'm going to do because, well, it doesn't suck. Thanks for hanging out. We will catch you next week. Bye.